prenup during their wedding. However, Adele's divorce filing might involve determination of their son's custody and finance. Also, Koneki might be entitled to as much as half of the singer's earnings, as the divorce was filed in Los Angeles, California, where they own a property and where his business has a base of operations. And that's it on entertainment. The very best in sports right after this. In sports, the Nigeria Football Federation Board will take a decision on whether Salisu Yusuf will return as coach in any capacity to any national team job after serving a one-year ban for breach of professional conduct. Yusuf was slapped with the ban in September 2018 for receiving cash gifts to field 2 players in his team for the 2018 African Nations Chairmanship. According to the head of Communications Department, NFF, Ademola Olajire, the 53-year-old, who the Federation has noted served his ban, will further have his eligibility to return as national team coach deliberated by the board. A date for that high-level deliberation was neither given nor whether the coach has offered himself for service. It will be recalled the cash gifts case was brought forward by an investigative journalist who fronted as an agent and offered Yusuf $1,000 to select 2 of his clients for the Eagles team and feature them in the CHAN. Despite his denial of receiving bribes, Salisu Yusuf was found guilty by an NFF Ethics and Disciplinary Committee. He was subsequently banned for a year and fined $50,000 US. And that's our news roundup of events at this hour. For more news updates, please follow us at Plus TV Africa on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa. We will be back later with more stories making the headlines. Please do join us again. I am Amaka Okoye. Do have yourselves a great day.
Welcome to Tea Time on Plus TV Africa, where we bring you the biggest entertainment stories and, of course, analyze them for you.
You can have both parents and still end up as a useless child. I see them every day.
Most times I worry more about where I'm coming from and where I am now. Wow. And that determines my next step.
Why are you sounding like
Alibaba
now?
Plus TV Africa, we're feeling good. No time to dull, everybody feeling alright.
Still make music and people are still buying. Sometimes I look myself minimal IU.
Akpala music is for mature-minded people. I got DMs sometimes from Malawi like,
Sleeping early.
A lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years.
10 years.
when I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
Hello and welcome to One on One on Plus TV Africa. In the studio with me is Kiari Buka. Kiari has served as Managing Director and CEO of the Central Securities Clearing System PLC, CSCS, which is the Central Securities Depository of Nigerian capital markets. He has also served in the capacity of the Chairman at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. He is currently the co-founder of Trans-Sahara Investments Corporation. Thank you very much for joining me in the studio today.
You're welcome, Myron.
You have served in different capacities, wearing different hats at different periods. Tell me, how has the experience been for you?
It's been a wonderful journey. One of my former managers said that if you want to get something done fast, give it to a busy person. So I suppose I've been busy, and Nigeria kept me busy, both in the private sector as well as some collaboration with the public sector. And many of the roles I've played, whether as CEO of Value Card, CSCS, or even Executive Director in Bank, FSB, I had enjoyed it thoroughly, in the sense that I do come in contact with young people that one mentors, and I've seen that they've grown and they've developed themselves both personally and professionally. So that's quite a satisfying stint.
Interesting. And I know that you're currently the co-founder of Trans-Sahara Group. What has the experience been for you so far?
As Trans-Sahara Investments is a private equity outfit. We are in the early stages of raising our first fund, which basically we're going through the challenges of any sort of a startup. If you're starting a new business, you're bound to have challenges. And,
of course.
We are naturally facing that, but we're looking at opportunities, and there are some light. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Of course, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, certainly. So let's talk about the Nigerian economic space. How would you describe Nigeria's economic landscape at this point?
It's quite challenging, if I can put it in one word. This is a country that has all sorts of opportunities that we had passed on, meaning that we needed to have embraced those opportunities as they come about. And unfortunately today, we're faced with a lot of challenges.
I can imagine.
The global geopolitics is not helping us either. So we have been a monocultural economy, and many of us had been advocating for diversification. When you look at the economy from the point of view of contribution to GDP,
yes,
it's diverse. But when you look at the economy from the point of view of revenues to government, unfortunately, it is the oil and gas sector that contributes tremendously to the federal government's coffers. And anytime there is a hiccup, we see it in what we have experienced in 2016, which was the major recession that we've had in the past 25 years or so of this country. And we haven't experienced the kind of growth that we've had prior to the recession. So since we got out of recession mid-2017,
yes,
the growth had been lackluster. And that basically means that more people are coming into the workforce, more graduates are coming into the workforce,
True.
and there are no opportunities and no jobs available. And the reason being that the business environment and the business climate is not conducive for businesses to hire more or businesses to start and grow, etc., etc. So those are some of the complications that have been compounding the Nigerian economic situation in the last 5 or so years.
Let's talk in practical terms. You said a startup as you'd like to describe it. And we've talked about the geopolitical environment. How is this playing out in your business as a startup at this point in time in Nigeria?
Being a private equity outfit, you have to go look for investors that are going to look at the market you're going to play in. And we chose to play in the Nigeria and, of course, West Africa by extension, and look at investing in startups and early stage companies.
Yes.
Now, that requires a level of confidence by the potential investors that would give you their monies for you to invest. Now, those potential investors are not living in darkness. They know the world, they know where the opportunities are. And we basically try to sell them rising Africa. Africa is rising. And therefore there is a huge, exactly, there is a huge opportunity for people to invest. And over the next 5-7 years, the investments would grow at a faster pace or at a faster clip than any other part of the world. Now, that's one. When they look at Nigeria, unfortunately, they do not see that. Of course, there are opportunistic areas that people look at, people that are savvy enough about this market that would continue to invest. Newer investors, however, would rather go and invest in Kenya, Ghana,
for
or
example.
even South Africa for that matter, which actually means that we are not giving the proper narrative of the opportunities that exist in Nigeria. And it is not just the private sector or people like us that need to go. We did a roadshow in Houston about 2 weeks ago, and about 3-4 weeks ago, and it was received quite well. Now, that's just one person or one entity, but we need to have a concerted effort from the point of view of government of Nigeria to go out, reach out to those businesses and investors to come to Nigeria. The other thing is that we also need to fix what we have in-house.
Yes.
There has to be proper regulatory and business-friendly framework and conversations. So where the regulators are not helping develop the businesses that they're regulating.
Yes.
Rather, they're just, trying to stifle by putting out
regulations, policies
that actually stifle growth.
Yes.
So again, that's another area that the government needs to actually pay attention to. We have lacked something that as a kid we used to have, which is an economic development plan. That we used to have, I believe it's 4 or 5 year development plans that were rolled over, and therefore there is continuity in the planning process. That hasn't happened in the last 2 or so decades in this country, and therefore that is also something that needs to come back into the discussions on how effectively we can dress up Nigeria so that it becomes an
make it more attractive for the investors.
For investors, yes.
Now, we also have the government that has come up with the ERGP, the Economic Recovery Growth Plan.
Right.
Would you suggest that plans of this nature would be what would move Nigeria to the point where we want to get to?
Exactly. So a plan such as EGRP is fantastic. Now, the problem is when it comes to implementation. And I think that is where we have so far as a country not done quite well, which is that on paper things look great. When it comes
and we seem to develop really amazing policies.
Exactly, or plans. And then with the EGRP, what we needed to have done is to make sure that the implementation is done. But then there should be an entity that would basically be monitoring the implementation and scoring either the ministers or the MDAs, the ministries, the departments and agencies on the promises made, on the targets made or targets set, and how far we've achieved. And if that is going on, whatever you measure gets done. And if that happens, then what will happen is that there would be the concurrent work that the private sector also would begin to put in place, because there would be that belief and trust between the private and the public sector, and jointly then they can actually face in the same direction and work towards those objectives. And I think we haven't seen that. The other thing is that I also believe very strongly that there has to be a sense of urgency.
Yes.
When you want to do
Certainly.
something, do it quickly, so that even if there are mistakes, the mistakes would be found fairly quickly so that you can begin to correct those errors. And as a nation, we're just quite slow, complacent, and in the process, we become less and less competitive as a nation.
Because I see that at the end of the day, it's the private sector that has the capacity to expand our employment net, create jobs for these unemployed people. So do you think that we have the ability to lift the country out of this bedeviling number of unemployed young people that we have here in Nigeria, which is now creating a high level of insecurity in the country?
Correct. In fact, if you do not engage the youth have this energy that unless it is channeled for positive purposes, it can easily be sidetracked and be used negatively. And the amount of insecurity or the number and distribution of insecurity that is going on in the country has a lot to do with the economic realities of the country.
Yes.
And if we begin to engage them very early, whether it is in the agri or agro-allied industries, whether it is in the construction space, or manufacturing, light manufacturing, then we will not be in a position to channel those energies into positive endeavor so that they would begin to build the country. Because it's the young that would do it. It's the young
that's
that
where the ideas are flowing, the knowledge of ICT, creativity. I mean, we're doing a whole lot when it comes to our creative industry, for example.
Right. So the creative industry, the technology space, all of those have places where kids can actually, the youth can, get involved in and push. However, we also need some of those in the fundamental areas of the economy, which is the construction. I mean, we have a huge housing gap. Can you imagine? Unleashing the amount of capital that is trapped in the real estate space, for example, in the lands, and then unleashing that and making it into a productive industry, and that would create a massive employment, which actually, a country like the US after the Second World War, there was a boom that actually lasted 25, 30 years as a result of the concerted effort by government to plan and be there in terms of construction of dams, construction of roads, construction of railways, etc., which actually became the key ingredient of creating jobs. And the private sector was involved in doing that. It wasn't government doing it. Government was the enabling environment. Government was the source of some of those capital, but at the same time, lesser regulations that stifle those business environments. And I think that's what we need in Nigeria to increase or goose that economy so that the growth trajectory would be higher and more inclusive. In that regard.
All right, thank you very much. We'll hold on for a bit. We will take a quick break now. We've been speaking with Kyari Bukka. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We've been speaking with Kyari Bukka. He's the co-founder of Trans-Sahara Investment Corporation. Thank you very much for your time still.
Sure.
Before we went on the break, we were still talking about the fact that we have a high unemployment rate here in Nigeria. Research has also shown that we have more FPIs coming into the country than FDIs. What's your take on that? Because at the end of the day, when you talk about economic growth, we need more FDIs than FPIs.
Yeah. In fact, for any country, it is the attraction of, you do not have enough resources, right? So enough resources in terms of the capital requirements. Now, you need to go out there and attract capital, long-term capital that would basically be able to come in. They invest that capital in productive industries.
Yes.
And then it would be sustainable over a longer period of time. Now, that's the foreign direct investment.
Yes.
FPI, on the other hand, is foreign portfolio investment.
Yes.
That is that these are people that come in, invest in your stock market or your fixed income, and their time frame is usually much shorter. And the reason that they come in is because they look at it opportunistically. I mean, if you're sitting in UK or in the US, your interest rate on a T-bills would be under 2%.
It's very low.
It's extremely low.
Yes.
Now you look across the pond and you look at Nigeria, and T-bills rates are going 10, 11, 12%. And if you can now stomach the foreign exchange risk, then you could bring in your money, come into the fixed income or into the stock market.
Yes.
But most of the FPI these days are going into the fixed income space. And that means that they are buying 180 T-bills or 180 days T-bills, 6 months, 3, 6, or 9 months, or even 12 months treasury bills. And then that means that these people are coming in and living within the span of a year. Now, here is what's happening. If, for example, the interest rate doesn't, change over that period, with the assurance coming from the central bank and the government of Nigeria and so on and so forth, then they know that that trade is extremely lucrative for them. Does it build the country? Probably not. Does it help government in meeting its deficits, financing, and so on and so forth? Kind of, but it is coming at what cost? And so when you look at our budget and you look at the the debt service component of our budget, which I don't remember, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of closer to 300 billion every year. Now that is the cost of that debt, and it is continues to compound and increases.
Yes.
Now, that's the danger of FPI versus an FDI. I mean, do you need it? Yes, you need it, but it shouldn't be in the proportion that we have right now. I believe it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 20% in favor of FPI.
FPI, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If it is somewhere 60-40 or even 50-50, then it means that some of the money is coming in here and staying, and it's helping develop and grow the economy.
And that's what's going to help the issue of unemployment.
Exactly, and that's the issue that we need to address
really tackle.
Internally, and it would be more sustainable when you are attracting FDI year over year. And the key is that people should not look at us or see Nigeria as an extremely risky market to get into, or a risky economy to get into. And you get that with one, which is that our political system is democratic, even though we do have complaints about whether the election is fair, free, but so far there seem to be improvements over time. People might argue with that, but the fact that we haven't pushed beyond the fact that since 1999 the democratic system has come to stay, more or less. The second is that then they look at the economic policies of the governments that have come into power, and there has to be clarity over those economic policies. If it is a market-friendly, market-oriented economy, then that needs to be shared and communicated to the rest of the world so that it can attract the necessary capital. And of course, those are some of the things that some of us believe the government needs to do in terms of attracting foreign capital. We do not have enough money to do anything. If you look at our budget, we're borrowing massively. Massively. Last year it was $2.2 trillion. Sorry, naira. 2.2 trillion naira in the budget. But if you look at it in terms of the actual performance, it might even be worse than that. And the same thing this year. The light at the end of the tunnel would be if we begin to attract more FDI than FPIs, and we do so consistently, then we can begin to say, yes, we are now having the right trajectory of growth. But so far, I haven't seen that evidence.
All right, and then on the issue of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement that was signed by the president, some people are still not sure if it would add the expected growth into the Nigerian economy. What's your take on it?
Number one, it is absolutely necessary that we sign the Continental Free Trade Agreement. Some of us, especially when I was the chairman of NASG, we believed that that would be good for Nigeria and the greater Africa good. The greater good for the entire continent. The reason is that if you look at the numbers, trade between African countries is abysmally low compared to trade that African countries have with the rest of the world. Now, if we begin to trade amongst ourselves, at the end of the day, it will lift all of us. Now, care must be taken so that there is no dumping. I mean, I could come across the border and set up, bring something from China and then say it is from
somewhere, some other
neighboring
African
countries. So of course, those are some of the things that people might be concerned with. However, if we all believe that we can actually, add value to some of the crude products that we produce, whether they are agricultural products or they are things that we dig from the ground, such as solid minerals and so on and so forth. If we are adding value, then it means that we are actually growing our own economies. And then if we are trading amongst ourselves, then we add more value, actually. The trade itself has a, friction that would be less and less amongst ourselves. Now, the fundamental thing about it is that Nigeria must be competitive. And that requires that we build our infrastructure. The inadequacies of our infrastructure need to be addressed. So government must be able to invest in ensuring that our infrastructure is competitive. Because if there is no energy, then why should I bring a factory and build it in Nigeria rather than, say, take it to Ghana, where I could then bring the finished goods into Nigeria. There are some key industries that you can't just put anywhere and bring the goods, such as liquids and, or food stuff and things like that. It's better closer to the market. And so that would also open Nigeria up for additional investments from all over the world, because the free trade is now bringing either the cluster of economies within certain spaces in Africa. For example, West Africa then becomes one block that one can look at those 350 million people, of which Nigeria is 200 or nearly 200, and that becomes an attractive, large market. The entire continent then down the road become an attractive market. So essentially, it's something that long term, it's going to be attractive for all of us in Africa. Short term, we will have our challenges, but those challenges would only be addressed if we become competitive. How do you become competitive? Your educational system has to be fantastic. It has to be second to none. So we have to invest in education. We have to invest in health, because it requires healthy people for them to be productive. Then you have to invest in those key critical infrastructure that is absolutely necessary. You do those three things with a with a look towards the future. I think we can be a star.
Make it a better place
in the continent, really. Yeah.
But then, quite disturbing, however, there was a report by the National Bureau of Statistics which showed that our non-oil imports into the country rose by over 463%.
Right.
Right? Which is quite in contrast with what the government is trying to do. Because we say, oh, we're trying to diversify the economy, taking it off crude oil, and now branching into other sectors that would potentially generate revenue for the country.
Correct. So I mean, a large penchant for importation is a bad sign for any country. It means that we're not productive, we're a consuming nation. I mean, if we are a wealthy country, I would say, okay, that's fine. We're not. The reality is that our per capita income is extremely low. We are towards the low to low medium or medium low in the Committee of Nations. We just happen to have large population base. Now, the problem of the curse of the crude oil is also being applied to other areas. Whatever we produce, even the agricultural goods we produce, if we are exporting them raw, by raw I mean we just clean them up, dry them, and then ship them out, that means that we're not adding value. We need to add value so that we should be in the habit of exporting finished goods.
Yes.
Now, if our imports are growing at 400%, then we have something, we have a major conversation that we need to have with ourselves, so that we should, reverse that trend. First of all, arrest it and look at areas that we can actually begin to add value ourselves and be a net exporter rather than an importer of those goods and services. So it's a major it's a wake-up call, actually. Right.
And I hope that at the end of the day, we would see the government and everyone involved doing what they need to do to ensure that Nigeria's economy starts to grow, and most importantly, attract foreign investment and investors into the country.
That's the opportunity, because when you say, look, we are importing, I don't know, $10 billion worth of X, say sardines or whatever, for example, then why are we not raising fish? Why are we not, catching our own fish near our waters? Why don't we have fish processing plants that would employ people, and that would then be, and then earn the FX?
Exactly.
So
sadly, this is all we can take for now, but thank you so much for joining me in the studio. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all on this episode of One on One. For more educative and entertaining conversations of this nature, do follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, all on Plus TV Africa. I remain your host, Irene Ubani.
Politics has helped shape the decision of the polity, from conspiracy theories to good old-fashioned comic politics.
These are the results of tomorrow's election. Okay, you have it already, have you?
I think we've done very well in the very difficult circumstances in which we took over governance.
Plus, politics will fill the polls of the country, from friends to frenemies, even strange bedfellows, to clones and stooges. We go beyond the rhetorics and the drama to analyze the story behind the story.
Let everybody come and say!
The perception in itself does more harm than actual corruption that you have.
Plus Politics, not just another political show. It's about putting you, the citizens, in the know.
A lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years.
10 years.
When I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
All right, country people, we greet on top this very o'clock when so that join us for news on the hour for Plus TV Africa. This is not the Throw M. Sama Governor. My name, na Promise Nero. They say they don't carry matter of the next batch of Nigeria people when say they're ready to show back to the country till Sunday by the federal government to make the Nigeria High Commission for South Africa resolve some immigration palaver them. According to report, the remaining 453 Nigeria people when say that they wait for repatriation for Johannesburg go need to wait until they finish the palaver. The South Africa Immigration Authorities on Wednesday delayed the flight of the Air Peace aircraft when say carried the first batch of 187 returning Nigerian people for over 7 hours. Shemo, Nigeria in the Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri Erewa, confirmed on Thursday say the government they work to address the matter. Earlier, for our news political analyst, Moses Nekpe, he shared matter on top the palaver.
The thing with me at the CDF is saying, these South Africa people, they just, then they confused.
Okay.
You know, you say you don't want somebody for your country. The person comes say, okay, I don't pack my load.
Yeah.
Nigeria must go.
Yeah.
You understand me? I won't come go. You can't they drag me say, no go. Maybe your paper don't expire or I know it don't make sense. You understand me?
Yeah.
Because una they kill or say una no one make with them in our country.
Okay.
Now we can say okay, we won't go. You they say okay, make we never go because of maybe paper don't expire or one thing. The only way you go make you not allow somebody go. Now when he maybe commit criminal offense, maybe he don't thief or something.
Yeah.
But if na immigration issues, you don't want the person there as an immigrant in the first place. So why you they hold them down?
So the person for this matter now be say if you get you suppose go as far as your paper, whether paper correct or you know
correct because they don't say no we go.
Okay.
They don't want us again.
So you need to
let us know we go. Nigeria must go. I want to ask you, my brother, the IDPs where they for Nigeria, those internally displaced people for Nigeria.
Yeah.
Our government don't compensate them.
Okay.
Now, when they say maybe we did there compensate now. My brother, the way you take handle your people for house go determine how strangers go take handle them. Nigerian government no get level. We don't lose all the level where we get to take demand such compensation.
Okay.
No forget that level. That they don't make sense. They don't enter.
Okay. The
they
way you talk all these things, so see, I can't notice say bless say you get plenty knowledge for head. So imagine say they put you as the president of this country now. This palaver where they grant how you go take handle it?
If they put me as the president of this country, where they here, first of all, number one, Nigeria, we need to get our internal problems sorted out.
Okay.
You understand me? They get one part about it they talk now because say fence fall, now make goat climb am.
Okay.
You understand? I'm telling you now.
Okay.
Can you see an American citizen go there, they face this kind of nonsense for another country? Their country, they good enough.
The tip is say no come up for what you ask you. So
that is what I'm telling you now. I will make sure say, the country they okay. We go make sure say our people no need to go outside. And if they go outside, this kind of thing happen. I will take a firm decision, a very strong decision to make sure that next time they don't do Nigerians this, they don't treat Nigerians like this. What I will do, I will make sure that I sever all diplomatic ties with South Africa.
Okay.
You understand
that English, I don't understand.
That means I will take knife, cut every rope with we and South Africa together.
Okay.
So that they go know say these people get somebody. You understand me? They say Christmas where they work out for road. Now when you do something, maybe when you kill and I go know say you get family.
Okay.
So you understand me? So our government they never do enough.
Okay. If now you be president,
I will be very firm. In fact, I will stand gidigba and make sure say South Africa and all their interest in Nigeria suffers for this this kind of nonsense.
Okay, so that they feel released.
So that not be released. So that next time they not go try them again.
All right. Let's say the Niger Air Force don't scatter 2 ammunition-laden gun trucks. When we say in the Islamic State West Africa province, Tenget, NAV Director of Public Relations and Informate, Air Commodore Ibikunle Daramola, confirmed this statement on Wednesday for Abuja. Daramola saying that the Air Task Force ATF of the Operation Lafia do scatter them. He said the NAV Alpha Jet aircraft mission see the ISWAP gun truck. When we say they come from Juma Kerry settlement, they go Garunda. The attack aircraft attract 2 gun trucks as they attempt to evade detection as they drive enter the foliage them. The aircraft do yans with one of the gun truck camouflage under one tree for successive passes when say score better hits when it lead to the neutralization of some of the ISWAP occupant them. The Nnamdi Kanu-led indigenous people of Biafra don't finally get one hearing date for the appeal when say they challenge the proscription by one order of the Federal High Court for Abuja when they give almost 2 years when say don't pass. The Court of Appeal for Abuja don't fix October 24th for the hearing of the group appeal. The Islamic Movement for Niger, one body of Shiite Muslim, when they say their proscription by the Federal High Court for Abuja come about 2 years after IPOB, still get October 28th date for the hearing of the application. When say they challenge the proscription order, now they say for that time, Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice Adamu Abdul Kafarati, when we say don't retire, he done September 20, 2017, make the order when we say they prescribe IPOB, when we say they say a terrorist group. This one follow one before party application by the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister for Justice, Abubakar Malami San, when the Sama accused give the group say that they do anyhow, say they want their own Republic of Biafra. They say the House of Representatives not happy with the number of abandoned projects when say for the Niger Delta region. According to filings, the Niger Delta Development Company, NDDC, abandoned the project them. The House of Ad Hoc Committee on Niger Delta Development Commission for one public hearing for Abuja say need day to investigate why the project, when say they're supposed to improve the lives of residents of the Niger Delta, it failed. Members of the committee want say people go face the palaver, come tell the House say they will stop the practice.
This honorable committee want to make sure there's value for money. And making sure that there's value for money, those that are saddled with such position of authority must give account of it. And we are determined to make sure that the Niger Delta people that have contributed a lot to the building of this nation must have support and smile on their face. That is why we are saddled, that's why we are here. We need your cooperation.
Today, I can proudly say that the Speaker of the House of Representatives is so determined to use legislative instruments to find solutions to our age-long problems. Problems that have been there for so many years, problems that government after government have attempted to resolve but were not able, probably because of insufficient stakeholder participation and the right approach to the business. Abandonment of projects is one of the biggest challenges that we have in this country today. Be the infrastructure projects, health-related, environment-related, as serious as they are, you have abandoned projects for so many years. And NDDC happens to be one of the worst hits among all government agencies.
But I would like to say that the immediate past minister of the Niger Delta, after a protest to Mr. President on abandoned project of NDDC, was sent by the president to come to Akwa Ibom to inspect this project. And I would like to report to this honorable house that at that visit, the minister spoke openly at several of the locations of this abandoned project, complaining of poor supervision and all the other things. And that video recording, Mr. Chairman, will also be made available by the Akwa Ibom State government to this committee to further guide this committee that before today, this abandoned project, in case of Akwa Ibom, had been highly and properly highlighted.
And what has brought us here is to give our input in this public and investigative hearing over the NDDC abandoned projects, and to say our bit, because we too have hardly benefited anything from NDDC, even though a great deal, and I want to stress the great deal of value, is being taken from the bowels of our land for the development of the rest of this country. But not much, nothing ever is being put back.
Some young Nigerian people don't call on the federal government to do more to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, when say that they call SDGs. The youth when they say they want to create awareness as part of the SDGs National Action Week, not happy with Nigeria SDG performance ranking. They gather body for one popular unity fountain inside Abuja. They call on government to improve the SDGs implementation process.
The activity is basically around mobilizing one of the largest local actions for the Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria, mobilizing and galvanizing the energy of the young people to see how we can increase Nigerians' performance on the scale of reference, especially around the SDGs. Globally, Nigeria is not performing well according to the present report we have. We are about 159 according to the global report on the table, which is practically unacceptable. We are trying to see what we can do to raise our actions so that the implementation process can at least improve. In the area of education, there are some specific goals that are more aligned with Nigeria, something like education, access to clean water, good health and well-being, security, which is goal 16. Gender equality is also very good around Nigeria. Goal 8, 9, and 10, these are Nigerian more specific. 1 and 2, no poverty and zero hunger. These goals are linked to Nigeria more specifically, and we need to fast-track a means of ensuring that they are highly reflected and the activities are improved in Nigeria.
Each and every one of us as a Nigeria, we should support the promotion of SDG because it's one of the ways of how we can reach out to people, how we can create awareness of people to get to know more about the SDG and also implement the SDGs. Promoting the SDG will actually change the lives of many Nigerians, and I encourage every one of us to, in our areas of strength and abilities, to be able to also promote the Sustainable Development Goals.
Since 2015, world leaders have come together to commit to the Sustainable Development Goal, and we believe that government cannot do it alone. Civil society cannot do it alone. The media cannot do it alone. It now beckons on citizens because citizens are the ones that are meant to hold government to account and ensure that they work with all partners, even the private sector. So for us, we're joining our voices to the National Action Week around the SDGs. This event is happening parallel across the world. And for us as young people, we believe that we are the custodians of the Sustainable Development Goal. If we say we want to achieve SDGs, Nigeria will be on the pathway in achieving SDGs. So we'll mobilize other young people and say, come, let's even discuss where we are and what we've done in the past 4 years. Next year, we'll celebrate a decade of action, which would mean that from next year, it will remain 10 years to achieve the SDGs. And we believe that Nigeria have not done well, and we need to do much more. So we're mobilizing and collecting voices to tell stories, to galvanize action, but most importantly, to hold government to account so that our policies, decisions will be streamlined into SDGs. How are we ensuring that children have access to education, communities have access to water, sanitation, and hygiene, and citizens can afford quality healthcare services, because that is achieving SDGs. And above all, ensure that we have peace, security, and justice.
We need to create more platform in educating people on what SDG is and the goals that we aim to achieve by 2030. And I believe that with this kind of convergence, we would be able to achieve more by educating people. Now we are working down to the ministries to educate some of the civil servants that don't even know what SDG is.
Let's say begins then from low-income communities for Kuje Municipal Council of Abuja benefit from 1 3-week specialized training on leadership and extracurricular worker. The initiative by the Special Summer School, they target children from poor communities for the North and hope to prepare them for future leadership roles. Our talk person, Amadi Oye, gets the answer.
It was a 3-week session with children from low-income communities. Many of them had the privilege to learn skills outside their normal school curriculum, which will help their development and preparation for future leadership.
Decided to organize the summer school, and we've been invested in doing this for the last 4 years because we wanted to ensure we can contribute to leadership in the country. And we feel like there's a direct correlation between the quality of leadership and governance we have in the country with the level of education we have. We have over 13 million children out of school in Nigeria, and 60% of them are based in northern Nigeria, and that's why we've been organizing this for the past 4 years in northern Nigeria.
While the objective was also to increase these young Nigerians' hunger and thirst for learning, some of the teachers say the summer school was well worth the effort.
We're trying to see how we can impact 100,000 children in the next 2 years. We think it's possible. In the last 3 years, we've done 300 children. This year alone, we were able to cater for 120 of the 350 children that came to us seeking to be part of the summer school today. We also have part of them under our scholarship program. So over 20 of them are in the scholarship where we are supporting their tuition and daily living expenses for their primary and secondary school education.
One thing we found very interesting is the passion for the children to learn. This summer school was meant to start at 9 a.m. every day, but by 7:30 the children are already here, even before we get here. So we had to even move the start time to 8 o'clock. So we've seen that we've ignited the love of learning in the children. They are extremely passionate about wanting to know more, learn more words.
The program started like, even the children, the people were like, they are not interested. But when they saw what is going on, it's very educative, very, very interesting. That is what makes them to even they even have a conflict where everybody wants to bring his own child to come and benefit. And definitely sure, what these people benefited today is going to live with them till the end of their educational career.
When we started, we found out that the kids are really, really not this kind of kids that are easy to catch up with things. They take their time to learn. But so far, within these 3 weeks, we have been able to make them understand how to read, write, even help them in creative thinking, help them in their creative writings. And right now, I think most of them, I would say, is far better than where we met them. We have been able to imbibe the love for our country, Nigeria, in them. And within these 3 weeks, we have been able to make them know that they can be a leader.
Some of the kids also shared their experience.
I've learned a lot, but the ones that I can remember, I learned patriotism, honesty. Patriotism is when you show love to your country. I learned honesty. Honesty is when you are always saying the truth. And I learned about my country. I learned that any job you find yourself, you should be proud of it. You should not be ashamed. Every job is equal. Every job is the same.
Learn about public speaking, dignity of labor. Dignity of labor. I've learned about many things. I've learned about learn many things in this people's from this summer lessons that have been coming so far.
Amadine Uyi, Plus TV Africa.
Let's say the federal government say they could talk with law enforcement agency against party them when their action or inaction they lead to diversion of Anti-Malaria Drugs Act, when we say they supply to Nigeria by Global Fund. Evelyn Ngige, the Director of Public Health at Federal Ministry of Health, threw this yarn for the 62nd National Council of Health meeting on Friday for Asaba. Ngige said the Global Fund now they put money for the procurement and distribution of 16,290,250 acts to health facilities for the 13 states to 2018. But only 8,189,226 malaria cases presumed and confirmed. Now they don't report or say they treat them with anti-malaria drugs across the 13 states for the same year. According to the federal government, these numbers highlight one matter between the service and consumption when we say be serious concern, not only for Federal Ministry of Health, but also for donors when we say be the Global Fund. All right, now time to take one sharp break. When we show back, we'll summon another story there. We'll not go anywhere.
Welcome to Exclusive Plus.
The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, will hold one extraordinary meeting for Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso this Saturday to talk for the growing threat of terrorism for the region. They don't see the summit as one turning point for the fight against terrorism for the geographical area, according to ECOWAS Commission President Jean-Claude Brou. For Burkinabe, President Roger Marie and Christian Kabore, the meeting gave one opportunity to take strong action against the palaver. The next one, now our foreign news. John Beko don't vow creativity for Parliament if Boris Johnson come up body from one law when said they designed to stop one no-deal Brexit. The Common Speaker don't talk for one speech say the only possible Brexit now one when said they backed by members of the Parliament. One new law when they passed before the suspension of Parliament, he forced the PM to do one delay until 31st January 2020, unless one day or no day exit a day approved by the MPs by 19 October. The PM does say he would rather be dead for this than ask for delay. All right, we'll go on a short break with the show back. They say the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission is saying Nigeria the rate of 146 of 190 countries for the Global East to do business. The Executive Secretary of the Commission, Yewande Smith, issued the rating when the World Bank do for Lagos. The report shows an improvement of 1.37 points from 51.52 distance to frontier for 2018 to 52.9 day for 2019. The Executive Secretary had said the Commission will don't adopt some proactive strategies when say they want to improve Nigeria investment promotion. When say go help to create ease to do business. The proactive investment promotion strategies that to focus on key strategic partners and countries to identify high impact sectors, better balance investors' rights with better worker, and to improve the investor experience and use feedback to develop the business environment. Still ahead on Top Plus TV Africa, now a news roundup for entertainment and sports with the show back.
Far away in a foreign land, they have embarked on a new adventure. What challenges will they confront? What pleasures will they experience?
Is to be the best in this competition because I really want to show the African how beautiful they are. Amazing!
A brand new life with all possibilities. Nigerians in China on StarTimes.nkoa.
Few days after introduction groove, popular Niger artist Davido, he don't officially proposed to a girlfriend, Shoma Avery Roland. He shared one video, a picture for her Instagram page where he said casual. She said yes, assurance 2020 hashtag. For one video where he said don't work online, when he said Shoma will belly stand as a superstar and a dan and pop the question. The singer, when he said already get 2 daughters, proposed to the celebrity chef for London on Thursday night, September 12, 2019. Ilovilovi died on the date for some time after they make their relationship public for 2018. Alright, that one of entertainment. The next one now for sports.
That money we shoot every person that we know we can shoot. We don't let people die there.
You could have killed me for a long period of time.
Is that time why I carry gonorrhea? I first go hospital first, but it no go. Now I can't make that, mama.
He just pulled it, he pointed and shot.
What is the soul of a man?
They suffer too much. They suffer too much. Issues around the Nigerian police. We have to tackle it holistically.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, a day concern for Manchester United, when Safi fall behind for the top 4 race after injuries to Paul Pogba and Anthony Martial ahead of Saturday game against Leicester. Both Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Jesse Lingard are still doubtful, with Luke Shaw and Diogo Dalot, when said already come out. Brendan Rodgers decided to travel go Old Trafford on Saturday with their own intention of qualifying for next season's Champions League. Solskjaer talk up for the forces credentials as they said the United not fear afford to fall behind Leicester or other top 4 rivals when said they be Tottenham, Chelsea and Arsenal. Other than what we get for our top this very o'clock for news on the hour for Plus TV Africa. Make una follow us for plenty of better information for Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Plus TV Africa, and it will make sense if you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa. Go stay the samba and plenty other to read them as time they go. My name, I promise, Nero, and I thank you that they join us. Una, well done.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Vicky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Welcome to Africa on the Move in partnership with DW. My name is Fumi Unuajefe. On this program, we'll be focusing on different people across the continent and how their stories and their action impact on every one of us. This week, we'll be taking a look at how people are empowering and changing lives in their own little way. First up, Namibia. Samuel Kapopo, a former thug turned motivational speaker and actor, is feeding the children on the streets of Namibia. Let's take a look.
I grew up in a really luckless life where life was not good for me, where I grew up without no parents, where I grew up without no food, I grew up without no proper education. So everything that you see was motivated and was inspired by a true story of my life. We have to work hard to bring up the donation. Sometimes we go in our own pockets to make it possible so the kids can eat.
A free meal attracts hundreds of children to Samuel's Soup Kitchen. But there are rules to follow. The kitchen teaches good hygiene, respect towards others, and discipline. Many of these children are orphans or have been neglected by their parents, just as Samuel was.
Some of the kids were born with HIV/AIDS. Some of those parents died because of HIV/AIDS. Some of the parents couldn't work because of HIV/AIDS. So the HIV/AIDS issue in Namibia has really contributed a big gap.
Samuel had a troubled childhood. As a result, he fell off the straight and narrow and joined a criminal gang.
I was shot, and the people who were saving me were kids. That's why I was motivated. Why the young kids used to save my life, and the elder people had to run away from me while I was sleeping in the seat of blood. So what happened is that then I decided to say, okay, enough is enough. Let me face the right direction.
More than 60,000 people live in Katutura, a suburb of Windhoek. In these overcrowded shelters, conditions are far from ideal for bringing up children. It's part of Samuel's job to secure the funding for this project from both private donors and companies. But without volunteers, the soup kitchen would not be able to operate.
I think it's a very good project because millions of kids here in Katutura, they are starving, even us. They are really starving there. I think the government doesn't really care about us here in Katutura. They know what's going on here, but they really don't care.
For now, the kitchen opens twice a week. The kids can play games here and read books in the storage room. One of the ways Samuel has raised money is through acting.
I went in the streets. I don't work, I don't do anything. I saw a pamphlet saying, looking for actors for certain movies, and I decided to take a chance. That's why I don't scared of trying something. And I went there and I was the luckiest guy. So this dream started from there.
Today, Samuel is a known actor and motivational speaker across the country, a fairy tale transition from street thug to role model that sadly isn't guaranteed for every child here. For the kids of Namibia's Katutura township, Samuel Kapepo is a role model, father figure, and superhero. The 30-year-old and his assistants provide warm meals for the kids twice a week. For most of the poverty-stricken children, it's not something they take for granted.
Samuel shows us that you can change lives one meal at a time. Well done, Samuel. Do you know that in Liberia, 63% of the young women there are illiterate? And when I mean the young women, women aged between 15 and 24. One woman sets out to empower school dropouts through fashion. Let's listen to her story.
Izata Pasewe has a busy schedule. The tailor isn't a regular seamstress. She is a fashion designer in her own right. The 33-year-old designs uniforms for several schools in Liberia. Her desire to help women brought her into this line of work.
Actually, what inspired me is looking at, more especially when it comes to women. I actually want to empower women because women play a major role in the society. Women are always vulnerable.
Rose Kase is currently being trained by Izata. The two women plan to tailor a variety of women's clothes to place them in several boutiques. Young women account for 40% of Liberia's population of 4.7 million. Most of them have no schooling. In Liberian society, vocational institutes offer alternatives to the traditional role of women. Not so long ago, Izata Pasewe was a trainee here. She graduated with a certificate in tailoring. Today, she trains these young women who dropped out of secondary school at an early age. They hope these classes will... Izata and her friend Rose are visiting Kasawa Fashion House to see the owner. Tina Kapan runs the only fashion store in Monrovia out of a garage next to her house. Today, Izata Pasewe is here to show Tina Kapan her new designs. The seamstress wants her mentor to showcase and sell her clothes in the store.
It was time that Liberia come up with her own made in Liberia product, our own designs to identify with Liberia. Then I realized, okay, we need to have a school where, a fashion school, that we can mentor them in there too as well, guide them, through educating them on how the whole industry works.
This afternoon between classes, Izata is trying to get her business registered. To compete for major government contracts, she needs to have a registered legal entity, but the process is a headache. It takes an hour just for her to learn about the certificates needed and requirements she has to meet. She didn't even know of the existence of some of them.
It is difficult to get all of these requirements they want us to give them because some we don't even have, so the requirements are too many to register a business right now.
Izata Pasewe's dream is to rebuild Liberia's fashion industry, a dream that began right here in her two-bedroom house.
I'm like hungry.
So the next time you see a Liberian fashion piece, you understand the story behind it. Now, from Liberia, we head all the way to South Africa, where Theo Ndindingwa, a young man, is creating opportunities for young dance talents across his country.
A day hardly goes by without Theo Ndindwa dancing. After 6 successful years in the UK, the professional dancer, choreographer, and entrepreneur returned to his home country, South Africa. He and his wife came back with a mission: providing opportunities to South Africa's dance talents.
There's so much raw, young talent that is not really being trained for a specific, anything. And I think that we just saw that gap, that there are a lot of young people here who need this opportunity.
In 2007, Theo and his wife Tanya founded iKappa Dance Theatre. In their Cape Town studio, they teach ballet, modern, and African dance to students of all backgrounds. But iKappa is more than a dance school. Twice a week, Theo drives to Guguletu, a township that's 20 kilometers away from the city. This is the place where he spent most of his childhood. His former primary school is one of 4 dance venues iKappa runs in the townships. Lilita Tsuwa gets ready for dance class. The 9-year-old is an eager learner.
I like dancing because you can learn more things about ballet and gymnastics and everything.
Her grandmother is happy for various reasons.
They are safe, they are well looked after. Oh, I'm more than happy, you have no idea.
Keeping the kids away from the street is one of Theo's objectives. Having grown up in Guguletu himself gives him an advantage.
I'm a product of the township. I was trained in the township, so I understand being in the township before even starting to talk about the training. And I think that's also what sets us aside.
Identifying young talent like Lilita is a crucial part of Theo's work. Around 200 learners are attending the free dance classes in the townships. This year, the first 7 of his students applied to join the university. Behind all the fun is a serious purpose.
The end goal is some of them to be professionals. They have to make a living and a life out of this. I've made a life out of dance, and I think that some of them have the potential to do the same.
Today's classes are over, but Theo's day is far from over. His next destination? A closed-down cement factory in the nearby Philippi Township. Theo wants to establish an art venue for his dance theater and for international artists. Soon, this should be an amphitheater.
The vision is to have this place being packed and live, live performances for the community, but also for audiences from all over the world to want to be here in this space.
Uniting people through arts is the main goal of Theo Ndindwa.
And still on dance, Sofiatou Kosoko believes in dancing with a resistance. Let's watch.
Dancing with Resistance is on today's programme. The École de Sable goes to great lengths to improve the dancing techniques of its students. We are dancing on sand. There is tons of it here. And the whole place, the setting, means that the students do everything to really immerse themselves in the bodywork. They come from the Ivory Coast, Tanzania and Chad. 20 students from 15 African countries have been enrolled this year. Courses are taught in French and English. Eleven Navago comes from Chad, where there is no dance training. His commitment is obvious for all to see. All these dance techniques are new to me. I'm used to the European or disco dance styles. But here I've discovered modern contemporary dance. All the movements are completely new to me. I'm trying to learn everything I can so I can do something with it. Jermaine Akogny is a star of Senegalese dance and founded the dance academy for students like Eleva. Nora Chipumia, a choreographer from New York, supports her.
There's two women with them. Where they are praying to go home quickly.
The training, which is thorough and professional, takes 3 months of hard work with renowned choreographers from America and France. We are the only centre in the whole of Africa that invites dancers from Francophone, Anglophone and Lusophone countries. We provide scholarships so students can realise their dream of dancing. Most of the money for the scholarships comes from sponsors within and outside Senegal. Even if the dancers do have a lot in common, the competition is tough, but social engagement matters a lot at École de Sable. Eleva was considered because of his project with street children. He looks after several abandoned children in the Chadian capital, N'Djamena. He's had to work hard for months to earn their trust. At the dance school, he hopes to get new ideas which he can incorporate into his work. I want to give the children hope. That's my innermost need. I'm not doing it to make money. No, I just want to make the hard life these street children have a little easier. To expand his street children project, Eleva needs this training. But first he has to get used to the formal language of African dance. In the École de Sable, many students need to interpret their own traditional dances in a different way.
And finally, we end in Guinea, where a young man has decided to create political awareness and preach peace through rap.
Master X sings for the opposition group Audace, Audacity. He's a star in Guinea, but also something of a mystery. In 20 years on stage, he's never shown his face in public. I'm about putting the message ahead of the aesthetics, like my face. It's the message I'm delivering, the message that comes from deep within the mask. He has an audience and intends to use his influence for political means. His group plans a press conference. We're trying to use democratic methods to push this president and his cronies from power. They've done nothing for 5 years. Worse than that, they've been destructive. Many Ghanaians would agree with Master X. The country is politically divided. In the capital, Conakry, supporters of President Alpha Condé also use music for politics, filling the streets with competing messages. None of the governments before now have done anything. It's been standstill for 50 years. But when we compare that period with what Alpha Condé has managed to do, this really has been progress. One thing that certainly has changed, there's electricity around the clock in Conakry now, thanks to a hydroelectric dam. But high unemployment still leaves many young people frustrated and angry. We are a democratic movement. We want to wake people up, shake them out of their lethargy and motivate them with our message of peace and non-violence. It's a message set to music. Master X performs after the press conference. This is in the Bambeto district of Conakry, known for its riots. Master X raps against violence. His is the sound of a movement for a new Guinea. It's the youth of Guinea who are getting involved. They have something to say. We just have to listen. Audace. But this election seems unlikely to bring much change. Pollsters suggest the current government will be re-elected.
That young man reminds me of a Nigerian artist called Lagbaja, who also wore a mask to convey his message. So on this note, I think I should also end the show with a rap. What do you think? So thank you. See you next time on Africa on the Move, yo. How's my rap? Thank you for watching. See you next time on Africa on the Move. Bye.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Politics has helped shape the decision of the polity, from conspiracy theories to good old-fashioned comic politics.
These are the results of tomorrow's election. Okay, you have it already, have you?
I think we've done very well in the very difficult circumstances in which we took over governance.
Plus, politics will fill the polls of the country, from friends to frenemies, even strange bedfellows, to clones and stooges. We go beyond the rhetorics and the drama to analyze the story behind the story.
Let anybody come and say!
The perception in itself does more harm than actual corruption that you have.
Plus Politics, not just another political show. It's about putting you, the citizens, in the know.
A lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years.
When I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
times when we see celebrities either on social media, television, or in person, we assume they have it all together, but we forget that they're also human. Well, here are some of the low points of some of your favorite celebrities.
It's a long story, man, because after I left church, because I love music so much, like I've loved music right since when I was 9, from my primary school days, I love music. So I started working in a pure water company, where I was paid 15,000 Naira in a month. I was earning very low salary then, but I had no choice. I had to do it because I had to pay for studio session, go to shows before you buy 1 or 2, bus score for you to wear money don't finish, I went through so many challenges, man. After, I started working at Loot again, Loot, Lagos State,
Like what? In what capacity?
Yeah, health attendant, yeah. Okay. I worked for 8 years.
Wow.
Where I gathered all my salary just to make sure, everything went well for me. But thank God, after the OSU, so many dirty jobs that I did then, but thank God today I'm here, Even
while I was Waje, I was squatting with a friend. I couldn't afford a house. I couldn't afford an apartment of my own in my early years as a musician, and, sometimes at some point it was from one friend's house to the other because you also have to be sensitive to some people. You get the way they go take change and for you said go find how you go, you understand? And even at that point, for every money that I made, I knew that my daughter was living with my mom. And I knew that it was my responsibility to cater for my daughter. So that I was squatting was no reason why I shouldn't be able to, work and give my daughter something, for her fees, my mom. So even the schools then, they used to spread the fees for me. Sometimes I'll pay up to 5 times. My first salary was 1,000 Naira.
Wow.
And then I was in the university. I had not even entered the university, but I was a church secretary. But that 1,000 Naira was enough for me to buy baby milk at the time, because I needed to do what needed to be done.
Without being too specific, it's just when I was making the transition from working from my grandfather's house to my own space, I went from having a lot to not having so much. So I thought I needed to quit, but it was just even actual reasons for me to keep going. So I don't need people to just, if they forget anything, they should just understand that if they need to keep watering, they need to keep ensuring the soil is good, and it's seasonal, but they are made of the stuff that roses will grow from, so they'll be fine.
Being an entrepreneur in Nigeria has been very difficult. For me, I started my business over 10 years ago, so we're looking at about 12 years now. The challenges along the way have been, have been many, to say the least. But I think one thing that has gotten me through is support. So whenever you're trying to get through a challenging time, look for people around you who can support you. I have a very supportive husband and family. My parents have also been very supportive. It was tough in the early days, but I think also having a business mind. So it's one thing to have passion, which is great, but you have to support it with a business mind. Absolutely, if you want to succeed and if you really want to scale in your business.
It is very important for us to understand the vows and the ways that these people sexually abuse children. I'm going to tell you a few tips on how to know. When you notice that a particular adult condones indiscipline, anything a child does, the person just look away or doesn't really take it seriously, we need to probe further. When a child tells you, I don't like this person, or I don't want to go to this place, we should not shut the child down. We should try to probe further the reason why that child is not comfortable with that place or person. When a child gets to an environment and the child begins to be very clingy or very afraid, something has happened in that environment. So there's no reason for us to shout at the child or to make the child feel that the child doesn't know what is happening. There are a lot of behavioral patterns as well. When you see a child bedwetting over, we call it reversal age range. What it means is that there are some certain things that children must have outgrown, so they go back to it again, like bedwetting, like thumb sucking. Those things are you know, traits to show that something is happening to that child. Then when a child suddenly becomes so quiet, a child that has always been active, jumping up and down, suddenly becomes so quiet, and the child is not necessarily ill. So there's something that we need to look into in that child. Or when an adult tells you, oh, I like your child is becoming a big girl, your child is becoming a big boy, those are signs of how sexual predators, how they, you know, how they behave. When an adult constantly talk about the sexuality of a child, then there's a problem. We have a lot of them like that. So we need to consider all these things as parents and caregivers to let ourselves into this education to know that we can, child sexual abuse is not far-fetched, it's just behind us. In fact, research made us to understand that every 2 minutes, a child will be sexually abused. And we hope and pray that our children will not be victims of abuse. So let us get education, let us read books, let us ask questions, and peradventure, unfortunately, if this happens, let us look for people who are professionals, professional psychologists, counselors, child sexual abuse advocates, people who deal with sexual abuse. Please do not shut the child down. When it happens, calm the child down, let the child understand that he or she is going to get help. Tell the child you believe them, because it is very important for their psychological wellness. When something happens to a child and you tell them, oh, I believe you, I trust you, I know it happened, and this is what has happened, and this is what we are going to do. Let the child understand that there's going to be help. If the child doesn't want to say anything, please do not force the child to say anything. Just take the child away from the environment and let the child calm down. Then seek the help of professionals. Please, this is not the time to pray. I'm a Christian and I pray a lot. But when things like this happen, we should seek professional help. Psychologists, all these people that deals with trauma and anything that has to do with abuse, because we have realized that keeping silent about these things affects children psychologically, and at the end of the day, they may become a sociopath, they may become a sadist, they can become anything in the nearest future, because we realize as psychologists that whoever you are as a child, whatever you do as a child, follows you to adulthood, and your emotional experiences as a child becomes who you really are when you become an adult. So we are so particular about preservation of childhood experiences, preservation of the environments where our children stay and live, so that they can become a better version of themselves when they become an adult. It is very important for us to understand the signs and to know them and how to deal with them. Sexual abuse, according to World Health Organization, has been declared a silent epidemic and is one of the things that causes HIV/AIDS. So we are hoping that parents understand all this, and whenever it happens, you seek for help.
Many thanks for joining us on the news on the hour and Plus TV Africa. Here are the stories making the headlines. I am Mary Anna Cohn. The scheduled evacuation of the next batch of Nigerians willing to return to the country may have been postponed till Sunday by the federal government to enable the Nigerian High Commission in South Africa resolve some immigration issues. According to reports, the remaining 453 Nigerians waiting for repatriation in Johannesburg would have to wait until the bottlenecks were over. The South African immigration authorities had on Wednesday delayed the flight of Air Peace aircraft conveying the first batch of 187 Nigerians returning for over 7 hours. Chairman Nigerians in the Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri-Arewa, confirmed on Thursday that the government is working to address the issues. Earlier on in our news political analyst Moses Nangpere shared his views on this.
it staggers my logical acumen why the delay. You said you don't want this set of people in your country. Why are you delaying them?
Because they said they have immigration issues.
What is the essence of the immigration issues? It's common sense. You say you don't want these people in your country. And they say they want to go. And you are saying they don't have valid documentation. Does that make sense? The South African government is just trying to play a game of maybe relevance or whatever. It's absolutely preposterous. It doesn't make sense. You say you don't want me in your country, and I said I want to go, and you are saying I don't have maybe valid documentation or what? It's not that I have committed any criminal offense or anything. You are saying I don't have valid documentation. Does that make sense? Let me go. It is simple. The narrative they have made us to believe is that we are not wanted. The issue now is not whether they have valid documentation or not. The issue is that they want us to leave their country. So why, okay, do you want to persecute these people for not having documentation and then keep them in your prisons and then spend taxpayers' money to be feeding them in your prisons? Why not allow them come back to their country? It doesn't make sense. It's so disturbing. It doesn't make sense. This federal government, they have not been able to compensate the people in their country. And they want to say these are just political gimmicks. They have not been able to take care of the people in their country. The people Boko Haram and other bandits and other security agents are killing unabated. They have not been able to compensate them, and they want to say they are pressing for compensation.
The compensation is, I mean, I want you to understand, the compensation is the South African government to compensate,
they cannot. They don't. The Nigerian government does not have the moral responsibility to ask for such. They have not been able to take care of their citizens in Nigeria. We have not been able to take care of our citizens in Nigeria. You have not been able to compensate for our citizens in Nigeria. You are saying a foreign government should compensate for killing your citizens in diaspora. See, let me tell you, it is how people perceive that you take care of your citizens in your country that will make them respect your citizens abroad. You can't do such a thing to an American citizen. You understand me? This is just political. They want to score cheap political points. Abike Dabiri should look for something else to say. This is not going to work.
You think so?
It's not going to work.
Anyway,
do you know that in the first place that the consular general to Johannesburg, initially they were living in denial of all these xenophobic attacks? Do you know they were living in denial of this xenophobic attack? Okay. And now you are saying they should come and compensate people that you have already denied that it happened?
There's also compensation for Nigerians. You know, the federal government is also saying there's compensation for Nigerians. So are you
Which
saying...
compensation is
because
that?
even those who came, part of what they've done is to say they're giving them SIM cards, you know, and put in some credit for them to have a startup. And they have said, you know, there will be some entrepreneurial skills that will be set up for these people. So are you saying that this will amount to nothing?
SIM card?
I mean, that's just, I'm giving you an example of a start up, what they have done, and, you know, other things.
My dear, have they been able to take care of their citizens in Nigeria? Do you know how many millions of Nigerians are living in poverty? Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. And they are saying they want to take care of people that are coming from abroad? Please.
The Nigerian Air Force has destroyed 2 ammunition-laden gun trucks belonging to the Islamic State of West Africa province, ISWAP. NAF Director of Public Relations and Information, Air Commodore Ibukunle Daramola, confirmed this in a statement on Wednesday in Abuja. Daramola said the trucks were destroyed by the Air Task Force of the Operation Lafia Doli. He explained that the NAF Alpha Jet aircraft on a reconnaissance mission spotted the ISWAP gun trucks emerging from the Jumacheri settlement towards Garunda. The attack aircraft tracked the 2 gun trucks as they attempted to evade detection by driving into a foliage. The aircraft engaged one of the gun trucks camouflaged under trees in successive passes, scoring accurate hits, leading to the neutralization of some of the ISWAP occupants. And moving on, the Nnamdi Kanu-led indigenous people of Biafra has finally gotten a hearing date for its appeal challenging the prescription by an order of the Federal High Court in Abuja, issued almost 2 years ago. The Court of Appeal in Abuja had fixed October 21 for the hearing of the group's appeal. The Islamic movement in Nigeria, IMN, a body of Shiite Muslims whose prescription by the Federal High Court in Abuja came about 2 years after IPOBs, had also gotten October 28 a date for their hearing of the application challenging the prescription order. The then Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice Adamu Abdul Kafarati, retired, had on September 20, 2017 made the order prescribing IPOB and designating it as a terrorist group. This followed an ex parte application by the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami SAN, who accused the group of conducting themselves violently in their agitation for creating a Republic of Biafra. The House of Representatives is not impressed with the number of abandoned projects littering in the Niger Delta region. According to findings, many of the projects are abandoned by the Niger Delta Development Company, NDDC. The House Ad Hoc Committee on Niger Delta Development Commission, at a public hearing in Abuja, said there is a need to investigate why the projects were meant to improve lives of residents of the Niger Delta had failed. Members of the committee warned that there will be consequences and assurances that the House will put a stop to the practice.
This honorable committee wants to make sure there is value for money. And making sure that there is value for money, those that are saddled with such position of authority must give account of it. And we are determined to make sure that the Niger Delta people that have contributed a lot to the building of this nation must have succor and smile in their face. That is why we are saddled, that's why we are here. We need your cooperation.
Today, I can proudly say that the Speaker of the House of Representatives is so determined to use legislative instruments to find solutions to our age-long problems. Problems that have been there for so many years, problems that government after government have attempted to resolve but were not able, probably because of insufficient stakeholder participation and the right approach to the business. Abandonment of projects is one of the biggest challenges that we have in this country today. Be the infrastructure projects, health-related, environment-related, as serious as they are, you have abandoned projects for so many years. And NDDC happens to be one of the worst hits among all government agencies.
But I would like to say that the immediate past minister of the Niger Delta, after a protest to Mr. President on abandoned project of NDDC, was sent by the president to come to Akwa Ibom to inspect this project. And I would like to report to this honorable house that at that visit, the minister spoke openly at several of the locations of this abandoned project, complaining of poor supervision and all the other things. And that video recording, Mr. Chairman, will also be made available by the Akwa Ibom State government to this committee to further guide this committee that before today, this abandoned project, in case of Akwa Ibom, had been highly and properly highlighted.
And what has brought us here is to give our input in this public and investigative hearing over the NDDC abandoned projects, and to say our bit, because we too have hardly benefited anything from NDDC, even though a great deal, and I want to stress the great deal of value, is being taken from the bowels of our land for the development of the rest of this country. But not much, nothing ever is being put back.
Some young Nigerians have called on the federal government to do more in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals known as SDGs. The youth who said they intend to create awareness as part of the SDGs National Action Week are unhappy with Nigeria's SDGs performance ranking. They converged on the Popular Unity Fountain in Abuja, calling on government to improve on its SDG implementation process.
The activity is basically around mobilizing one of the largest local actions for the Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria, mobilizing and galvanizing the energy of the young people to see how we can increase Nigerians' performance on the scale of reference, especially around the SDGs. Globally, Nigeria is not performing well according to the present report we have. We are about 159 according to the global report on the table, which is practically unacceptable. We are trying to see what we can do to raise our actions so that the implementation process can at least improve. In the area of education, there are some specific goals that are more aligned with Nigeria, something like education, access to clean water, good health and well-being, security, which is goal 16, gender equality is also very good around Nigeria, goal 8, 9, and 10. These are Nigerian more specific, 1 and 2, no poverty and zero hunger. These goals are linked to Nigeria more specifically, and we need to fast-track a means of ensuring that they are highly reflected and the activities are improved in Nigeria.
Each and every one of us as a Nigeria, we should support the promotion of SDG because it's one of the ways of how we can reach out to people, how we can create awareness of people to get to know more about the SDG and also implement the SDGs. Promoting the SDG will actually change the lives of many Nigerians, and I encourage every one of us to, in our areas of strength and abilities, to be able to also promote the Sustainable Development Goals.
Since 2015, world leaders have come together to commit to the Sustainable Development Goal, and we believe that government cannot do it alone. Civil society cannot do it alone. The media cannot do it alone. It now beckons on citizens because citizens are the ones that are meant to hold government to account and ensure that they work with all partners, even the private sector. So for us, we're joining our voices to the National Action Week around the SDGs. This event is happening parallel across the world. And for us as young people, we believe that we are the custodians of the Sustainable Development Goal. If we say we want to achieve SDGs, Nigeria will be on the pathway in achieving SDGs. So we'll mobilize other young people and say, come, let's even discuss where we are and what we've done in the past 4 years. Next year, we'll celebrate a decade of action, which would mean that from next year, it will remain 10 years to achieve the SDGs. And we believe that Nigeria have not done well, and we need to do much more. So we're mobilizing and collecting voices to tell stories, to galvanize action, but most importantly, to hold government to account so that our policies, decisions will be streamlined into SDGs. How are we ensuring that children have access to education, communities have access to water, sanitation, and hygiene, and citizens can afford quality healthcare services, because that is achieving SDGs. And above all, ensure that we have peace, security, and justice.
We need to create more platform in educating people on what SDG is and the goals that we aim to achieve by 2030. And I believe that with this kind of convergence, we would be able to achieve more by educating people. Now we are working down to the ministries to educate some of the civil servants that don't even know what SDG is.
The federal government says it will engage law enforcement agents against parties whose actions or inactions lead to the diversion of anti-malaria drugs supplied to Nigeria by Global Fund. Evelyn Ngige, the Director of Public Health, Federal Ministry of Health, disclosed this at the 62nd National Council of Health meeting on Friday in Asaba. Ngige said the Global Fund financed the procurement and distribution of about 16,290,250 ACTs to health facilities in 13 states in 2018. However, only 8,189,226 malaria cases presumed and confirmed were reported as treated with anti-malaria drugs across the 13 states for the same year. According to the federal government, these numbers highlighted an apparent discrepancy between the service and consumption, which is serious concern, not only for the Federal Ministry of Health, but to also the donors and the Global Fund. It's time to take a quick break now. Stay tuned for more news when we return. On the African scene, family of former Zimbabwe leader Robert Mugabe have agreed to bury him in the National Heroes Acre Monument in Harare, a family spokesperson said on Friday. Mugabe, who ruled for 37 years until a coup in 2017, died in Singapore last week at the age of 95. During these long decades, Mugabe was Zimbabwe and Zimbabwe was Mugabe. But in his twilight years, he became vulnerable and helpless, according to relatives and allies, even analysts. Mugabe bowed to pressure and resigned on November 21, 2017, in a military-backed coup, ending an increasingly tyrannical rule that saw millions of Zimbabweans leave to escape repression and economic ruin. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, will be holding an extraordinary meeting in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, this Saturday to deliberate on the growing threats of terrorism in the region. The summit has been described as a turning point in the fight against terrorism in geographical areas, according to the ECOWAS Commission President Jean-Claude Brou. For Burkina Faso President Marc Christian Kabore, the meeting provides an opportunity to take strong actions against the scourge. Up next is our foreign news. John Bercow has vowed creativity in Parliament if Boris Johnson ignores a law designed to stop a no-deal Brexit. The Commons Speaker also said in a speech that the only possible Brexit was one backed by members of the Parliament. A new law passed before the suspension of Parliament forces the Prime Minister to seek a delay until 31st of January 2020 unless a deal or no-deal exit is approved by MPs by October 19. The Prime Minister has said he would rather be dead in a ditch than ask for a delay. U.S. Department of Justice has said it will reveal a key name sought by people suing Saudi Arabia for alleged involvement in the 9/11 attacks. It says the information will be shared with attorneys representing the victims' families. It is unclear if the person's identity will become public. 15 of the 19 al-Qaeda hijackers who staged the attacks were Saudis. In 2004, the 9/11 Commission set up by Congress found no evidence that Saudi government funded al-Qaeda. However, a 2012 report by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, said the agency was investigating Fahad al-Tomari and Omar Ahmed al-Buyomi, Saudi nationals who allegedly had helped the attackers. Up next is our business news.
And in business, the Federal Executive Council approved 7.2% as the country's new value-added tax rate, up from the current 5%. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, has however said consultations were ongoing over when the new rate would apply. Recall that the federal government retained 15% of the VAT, 50% for the state, and local governments usually get 35%. Here are some of the items exempted from the VAT. We have the medical and pharmaceutical raw materials, basic food items, books, newspapers and magazines, educational materials, infant food, commercial vehicles and spare parts, educational materials, agricultural equipment and products, fertilizer, water treatment, chemicals. I have live in the studio Olufunsho Olaojo. He is the Manager Commercial Practice Group at Anderson Tax. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start from the basics. For those on the streets that do not understand what VAT is, help them in the most simplified way. Help them understand what VAT is and how and who bears the brunt of it.
Okay, so VAT is value-added tax. So it is a tax paid on consumption. So it's charged at 5%. So whenever you go to a mall, for instance, you buy whatever you buy, you pay VAT on it. So because you are consuming that goods or that you're enjoying that service, you then pay VAT. So a list of goods and services exempt. has been previously shown on the screen. So, those are the ones that are specifically exempt from VAT. So any other thing not exempted from the VAT is liable to VAT. So
okay, so are you saying that when I go to the market, what happens to me if I have to buy a 2 bar of yam or groundnut oil?
Okay, so like
fish,
I said,
meat.
Okay, so so as part of the exempt items is basic food item. So if you go to the market and you buy fish, you buy 2 bar of yam, you buy rice, those are all exempted from VAT, provided you bought them from the open market. So
okay.
So those are exempted. You don't get to pay VAT on it because it's food that general populace consume. So VAT is targeted at other goods and services that are different from these basic food items.
Help people understand. If I buy a bag of rice and a bottle of palm oil, of course the bottle of palm oil has already been processed. If I buy it from the open market, there's no VAT on it.
Yeah, exactly.
If I buy it from a shopping mall, there's VAT on it.
There's VAT. So the reason why there's VAT, we buy it from a shopping mall, is because FIS has always argued that when you buy it from the mall, there are other services you enjoy. So there's the convenience, there's the ambience, and the ease that you get, and the service that then follows the sale of that palm oil.
So you're also paying for comfort in that case.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. So from the point of an expert, I mean, you work with Anderson Tax. You relate with the government officials in charge of tax collection. You relate with companies and individuals that pay these taxes. Would you say that this is the best time to implement such a policy? Or moving from 5% to 7.2%.
Okay, so going back the memory line, you remember that President Olusegun Obasanjo also tried to increase the VAT to 10%, and that was upturned and it went back to 5%. Okay, so increasing it now without taking into consideration all the other issues that needs to be addressed is wrong. Actually, it's not the right. I don't think it's the right timing. So what should have happened is all the other issues in the VAT actually have been addressed before increasing the rates.
What issues exactly are we talking about here?
Yeah. So for instance, the reclaim mechanism in Nigeria is not exactly how it should be. So there are certain items, certain things that you do that you're not able that you buy, you're not able to recover the VAT on them. For instance, if you run a service company and all you do is provide services, you won't be able to recover the VAT you pay on whatever you buy to provide that service to your customers.
Okay.
So presently, the claim of input VAT is limited to goods bought and resold and to goods manufactured. So it's only manufacturers are able to reclaim input VAT and those that resell goods and services.
Okay.
So this is limiting actually. So it's limiting when you compare to the old world. So this kind of approach tends towards a sales tax more than a VAT tax. So VAT tax actually should have a reclaim mechanism for input VAT, the VAT you have paid to be able to provide the goods and services that you are selling.
Okay. Well, on this note, when you now juxtapose the personal income tax, income per capita of individuals, and the fact that we're trying to increase, or the government is trying to increase the VAT on purchased goods, how would this affect the purchasing power of the regular Nigerian?
Okay, so what will happen is prices of goods and services will go up, because increasing from 5% to 7.2% is more than 40% increase actually. So you see prices of goods and services jump up. And what would then happen? The minimum wage, for the purpose for which this VAT rate is increased is so that more money can be generated and shared to the state and local government so they can pay minimum wage. Then the minimum wage will then lose value. People will not be able to even afford.
Yes, because now we are trying to fund the minimum wage, but then of course people would go and buy things, and VAT will still be taken off them.
Exactly. So increased VAT. So at the end of the day, the purchasing power of people, of the populace will be reduced.
Because I was having a conversation with my boss, and then we had to put down the GDP formula itself, and we saw that consumer spending also has a way of increasing. It has an addition to the GDP at the end of the day.
Yeah.
All right, but then let's take a look at this particular increase now. Would you recommend that things like the personal income tax and the company income tax is also reduced, so that, there should be a balance of some sort?
Okay, so VAT is actually an indirect tax. Why personal income tax and company income tax are direct taxes. So VAT is borne by final consumers. Yeah. So, but personal income tax and CIT is paid on income that individuals and companies earn respectively. Okay. So I'm aware there's an amendment currently before the National Assembly to reduce the CIT company income tax rate for small companies to 20%. So, but that aside, I don't think there should be a reduction in tax rates because, especially for individuals, the tax rates in Nigeria for individuals is one of the personal income tax. Yeah, it's one of the lowest around the world. So what I think should happen is a revamping of the system. So there are recommendations already made by the National Tax Policy Review Committee. So those recommendations need to be brought on board, and there's a need to review all the tax laws and bring in necessary amendments in order to improve the tax space.
And this should be done very quickly, I suppose.
Sure, timely, yeah.
And finally, people's concern when they need to pay taxes is, am I seeing the value for the tax that I'm paying?
Yeah.
Because when you say that people do not pay their taxes as much as they should pay, some of their complaints are around the fact that, oh, I keep paying taxes, but then the streets leading to my house still remains the same. Yeah. What can be done?
Okay, well...
and how can we, most importantly, how can we make these people be more accountable, the people that we pay our taxes to?
Okay, so you see, taxation is a social contract, right? So when people pay taxes to government, they expect social amenities in returns, they expect services in returns. So when they don't see all of that happen, they begin to think that way, that why am I paying these taxes when I don't even get anything in returns? If you look at other countries around the world where infrastructure is top notch and everything works well, you see that the tax compliance there is very high because people know that the government will give back to them. They can see the effect.